One of the things that you see a lot, um, in all sorts of domains, I was gonna highlight, like, the entrepreneurship domain, but it's much broader than that. Um, all sorts of domains where people have a great idea and they put it out into the window or out into the zeitgeist, and they think that that is it, right? Like, that's the only thing that you actually have to do. But what turns into something that is actually extraordinarily important is not that one little tiny thing. Like, that might turn into something, that, the guy who invented, Duolingo, for example, he invented the CAPTCHA, and that thing went viral, right? Like, lots of people use this as a one-off thing, but nobody really, I mean, people know about CAPTCHA, and it's part of culture, but what people really know and love is Duolingo. Um, and a lot of things in this world that matter are actually not necessarily about one-off things, but it's actually like looking at a problem and having what I like to say is gumption. I like that word a little bit. It's not used enough. If you look at my last book, I talk about that. The importance of gumption, but really, it's this idea that you have this sort of burning desire to pursue something, and you're gonna do it no matter what, right? Like, it's gonna be just you're not gonna stop. It's n it y and you're going to do it no m like, at all hours that you possibly can, and to the point that everybody else thinks it's crazy and you're like some weirdo. Um and that's such an important part of doing anything, that matters, that will be important to you and important to other people, is just pursuing something with unbelievable amount of gumption or determination or grit or whatever you want to call it. Um, whatever the thing that you're looking at, right? Like that particular the idea of just relentlessly pursuing something that you don't quite understand, that is unclear, and you just pursue that thing with vigor for un an open-ended, unlimited amount of time and resources that you pursue at that particular thing. And I know that that seems like crazy. When I say that, that's what everybody says, right? Like, it's not rational, it's not sane. Um, all of that's dumb. Like, all of the sort of typical things that people think about, like, "Why are you doing that? Don't you have something better to do?" But if you look and you talk to anybody that has had real world impact, that has done anything, they all have that same story, and people call it, like, passion. All these things are kinda wrapped up all into one, right? Like, all of the, um just the idea of feverishly pursuing at something beyond what everybody else thinks is legitimate or plausible. Um, so there's these two logics that exist, and I like that. I've been studying it for a while, and it comes from uh, Johan Olsen and Jim March talk about this a lot, and they're these well-known decision scholars. And the idea is that most of the logic that we talk about is very, 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 it's called consequentialist. It's about like outcomes and achieving things. You sort of listen to the zeitgeist language, almost all of it's all about like, hey, decision making. You have to do things to get the right outcome, and you know what you're doing, and you're very heroic. But there is another kind of logic that many of us understand and are deeply rooted in it, but we don't talk about it that much, perhaps not since many years ago. And it's this idea of more of doing things because it's appropriate, or because it's your duty, or because you cannot explain why, right? Like there is nothing behind it that you're like, this is clearly, you just can't explain it, but you know it's important. Um, a lot of things are like this, and I talk about that on this channel, right? Like doing something like a club, um, doing something where um, going to war, right? Um, the whole act of war has very little. I mean, you could map it on to things like, worrying about the outcomes and making more money and all those kind of things. But often, if you talk to people that have legitimately gone through it and done it has nothing to do with that. Like nothing, because it's just too brutal. You're not going to do that because of money, right? You're not going to give up your life for some stupid outcome like money. Um, so there is a lot more to it that's baked into it. And we have to look at these kind of things often, why you are going to pursue to go and do something and create that, just that burning desire where lots of people understand what you're doing and creating a fire, right? And that's ultimately what you're doing. It it's about learning and pursuing things because of some uncontrollable desire that you don't ever understand and nobody else understands. And it's unclear and there's no metrics, like nothing like that you have been told matters. Right. And that's what's like the irritating thing to most people that look at this stuff. Um, you know, personally on studying it, it's like, how the hell do you study it? Right. We can use narratives and language and things like that, but that you often can't quantify that stuff. And then on the other side, the skeptics are there's a lot of skeptics, right? They all boil it down into whatever framework that they're going to look at that is empirically justified. And ultimately, when you actually go talk to people, that's not it, right? Like that is not it. If you were to talk to somebody about their sexual preferences, for example, and you ask them about why they actually do it, that has nothing to do with and I do this because I make money. Like, no, like that's stupid. You do it because it is a burning desire, right? Like you can't control it. It's not something that is anybody can actually say, like we know how to manage this, right? Like we don't. Um, and so that's where you have to get to if you're going to make any significant change in your life and in other people's lives. And, in God, you know, God willing, change around the world is figuring out what is such a burning desire to you that will light a fire to everybody else, and then we'll see it. So for me, it's the reciprocity project, right? Like I know that there is a lot of people, if you just simply Google how do PhDs feel or how do researchers feel, how do scholars feel, and the barrage of just like you're gonna go down a real dark, dark avenue when you do that. I encourage you not to do it for too long because it's like, oh man, it just like it's painful. But but on the other side, that means that there is something there that's important that I want to at least moderately impact in some sort of way, and know that if you were to listen to this, maybe, just maybe, you'll find something that you are so passionate about that you will pursue and you will love, and it will require everything that you can possibly give, and you will pursue that thing and you'll love it. And everybody else will wonder, why the hell do you do that thing? And that's kind of what I feel often with things like scholarship or, building the reciprocity project. It makes no sense. It costs me an unbelievable amount of time and money and resources, and I know it's important, but nobody else sees it, and that's okay. And then on the other side, why do I continue to do research when it's miserable? Anybody that it's ever sat down and wrote a term paper, which I think is most people, will tell you it's miserable. It's a horrible experience, but you do it because you know it's important, and you do it. If you're doing it because it like there's no consequences behind it, like you do it because you are romantically, uncontrollably in love with something that often doesn't love you back. Okay. It's it's this it's a siren. Um, but that's the important thing and why you actually do these things. And once you get that, and once you can light on that fire to everybody else, something changes. All right. Take care and have a wonderful day.